As a Warhammer player with multiple armies, I always run into the issue of I want all the cool models, but unfortunately, most of them are Forge World. So the question as to why Forge World kits are so expensive has been floating around in the back of my head for many years as a Forge World connoisseur. But since the GW website merger, Forge World no longer exists, well, the website Forge World no longer exists, even though if you type it into the web browser, it just redirects you to the GW website. The Forge World kits do still exist, just under a new label. So I wanted to know if there was a hidden fee associated with Forge World that might just be a fee of convenience, or some arbitrary value GW decides for each kit when they go to plastic. So let's talk about it. Hello everyone, it's me, the Warhammer Complaining Guy, Revan/Handy, Destroyer of Wallets, Maker of Terrible Financial Decisions, back with another video attempting to justify my crippling Forge World addiction with some math hammer. As a lot of you know, Forge World was the side hustle to GW's normal plastic range for models that couldn't be made to look as good in plastic, along with their garbage Finecast line, which was partially true back in the early 2000s. Nowadays, GW is making a lot of great plastic kits of former Forge World kits that arguably look better than their resin counterparts of years past with a more reasonable price point. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Forge World kits, they're a lot of fun to make, but some of them just don't make any sense as to why they're still resin, or why they continue to be made in resin. But the more I think about things like this and past videos I've made talking about Forge World, I start to ask, is Forge World or just the resin kits in general even necessary now that it's widely known that GW just recasts 3D printed masters for Forge World kits? If you didn't know that, congratulations, now you know. Earliest example I found was my Telemon Dreadnought, and that was released back in 2017. Now, making plastic kits is expensive because of the cost of machining an injection mold, but I feel that the high cost of Forge World kits is even more disingenuous now with this 3D printing revelation, since the quality of the plastic kits now far outpace the quality of the Forge World kits to some degree. I know I haven't mentioned this in previous videos, but after building my Cerastus Knights, I'm starting to see that ridiculous Forge World cost as more of a convenience fee. I'm sure some of you are asking how this ridiculous cost is a convenience fee. Well, if you have a Forge World Cerastus Knight and some of the newer plastic ones, which one was easier to assemble if we ignore the washing and releasing of parts and cutting them out of sprues, the resin kit or the plastic kit? You should be answering the resin kit because it's far fewer parts compared to the 200 or so parts from the plastic kit. And if you don't own any of the Cerastus Knights, this example also does work too for the new plastic Relic Dreadnoughts and the Thanatar. So before I start talking about this convenience fee, I just wanted to preface this by saying I know the cost of Forge World is different from plastic because injection molding can all be automated with little to no human input, while resin minis also take into account the cost of labor because Forge World minis are all cast by hand since they need to make the silicone molds regularly, mix large batches of resin, and sort the parts out to each corresponding kit. So that could honestly be the main reason for the difference in cost, but that then wouldn't make a very fun video now, would it? Now, finding the cost of this convenience fee was fairly simple. I mean, it's just basic subtraction, but I wanted to go deeper than that, so I decided to calculate the percentage change of the two prices, which uses this formula. Also, as the disclaimer, I am not an economist or mathematician, so I might be using this formula incorrectly, but I googled how to calculate a percentage change between two prices, and this is what I got. So, since this is a spiritual decrease in price, you use this formula, which is take the old price and subtract the new price and divide it by the old price, then multiply it by 100, and you get the percentage change. The models I'm going to be comparing have either gone from resin to plastic, or they still have a kit that uses both plastic and resin, so I'm going to calculate the base model from the hybrid. I'm also excluding shipping and taxes since that varies from state to state and country, and if I can, I'm also going to adjust for inflation since a lot of these kits are no longer in resin and you don't really know the price unless you bought them a long time ago like I did, along with all these being calculated in US dollars because so if I can find this magical number associated with how GW determines the cost of a resin model going to plastic, can I possibly determine the price of future models going to plastic? And if I can, holy shit, this is a game changer. So anyways, these are all the models I'm going to be comparing their resin to plastic counterparts. All the Cerastus Knights, the Baneblade chassis, more specifically the Guard variants, the hybrid Questoris and Armiger model still on Forge World, the Relic Dreadnoughts, the Land Raider Proteus, the Thanatar, basic characters, and finally, Terminators. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the price difference between the resin and plastic kits. This is what I'm going to call the convenience fee. since it's a matter of convenience when building because less parts equals less build time, and also time spent filling gaps and scraping off mold lines. So for this part, I'm just going to abridge the convenience fee because I know my audience. Starting with the Cerastus Knights, these have a convenience fee of $145, and believe me when I say this, I would rather build a resin Cerastus Knight than a plastic one because fewer parts and less gap filling. And honestly, it's weird that the Atropos hasn't been turned into a plastic or hybrid kit yet since, it's the last Cerastus Knight. So here's hoping for the reveals later this month. Next is the Baneblade chassis, more specifically the guard variants. So the base plastic kit, Stormblade and Stormhammer. The convenience fee associated with the Stormblade is $65 and the Stormhammer is $125. This is because the Stormhammer uses more resin parts than the Stormblade, but I'll touch more on that later. When we get to the remaining knights, this is where it gets a bit weird with the hybrid kits. The Megara and Styrix's convenience fee is $60 and you can only really build one specific knight. And the only thing used from the plastic kit is just the chassis and one arm for the cannon or Volkite. Then for the Moiraxes, same story, but this time you only get one Moirax as opposed to two Armigers in a plastic kit. So I'm going to assume the price of one Armiger is $48, which will then get a convenience fee of $24. And Moiraxes are honestly one of those kits where it isn't really worth getting unless you like knights like me. For the Dreadnoughts, they're now sold as a complete kit with 2 weapons as opposed to the days of old where you had to buy the body and 2 weapons. So I'm basing this off of a complete loadout. So the convenience fee for a full Contemptor kit would be $42, the Dorito $56, and the Leviathan $61. For the most recent resin to plastic releases of the Thanatar and the Triaros, I'm not doing the Triaros since I can't find its price when it was resin, and its closest counterpart is 2.5 times the price of the plastic kit, but the Thanatar has a convenience fee of $43, which honestly isn't that bad compared to the Dreadnoughts, but it's still expensive for a kit the size of a Redemptor Dreadnought. For the Land Raider Proteus comparison, I'm using the Armored Proteus, which might be a little bit off, but if I remember correctly, they were the same price, so there would be a convenience fee of $88, although I think this one might be a bit off since it's nearly 2 times the price, but we'll find out later. Character units are not as ridiculous of a convenience fee since our blister pack characters are usually a base $42 to $45, while the resin counterparts are $58, which would be an average convenience fee of $15. Then the Terminators were a bit of an enigma, since some of them are all different armor patterns, and if you could get plastic Cataphractii in squads of 5, they'd be $62, and once again, GW pricing makes absolutely no sense. But almost all the resin Cataphractii are $120 for 5, making it a convenience fee of $58, but if we go the Custodes route comparing Alaris to Aquilon, it'd be a convenience fee of $40 since you get 3 of each Terminator per kit. So now that I have some numbers for the differences in cost of a resin to plastic kit, it was time to calculate the percentage change of all of them so we can see if GW has a standard across all kits going from resin to plastic. But before that, it's time for some audience interaction to help boost it to the almighty YouTube algorithm. So maybe drop a like and subscribe please, because your support and engagement for this elaborate post of a channel only helps it grow to reach more Warhammer and Battletech fans, and also because it would be really awesome if I could hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers by the end of the year. But let me know in the comments down below, have you made similar observations to the cost comparisons between plastic and resin kits? And do you think GW is being a bit hypocritical recasting 3D prints to sell to us at a ridiculous markup when they themselves don't even like it when we 3D print stuff? Anyways, since I know my audience, let's plug in the values for each resin to plastic kit I mentioned earlier and give a brief rundown of each result. With the Cerastus Knight, the percentage change is about 41% from resin to plastic, and also I'm rounding up or down for simplicity's sake. The Baneblade variants, the Stormblade was a 26% change in price, and the Stormhammer a 40% change in price. For the Megara and Styrix, it was 25%, then for the Moiraxes, which I'm calculating the price of a single Armiger, is 33%. The Relic Dreadnoughts are as follows: Contemptor 39%, Dorito 40%, and finally the Leviathan at 42%. Next is the Land Raider Proteus, which was 49%, Thanatar 29%, Characters 28%, then the Terminators using both of my examples, Cataphractii 48%, then Custodes 38%.
But wait, there's more!
So it's time to do more math that might be wrong because remember, I'm not a mathematician. So the first thing I'm going to do is determine if any of these are outliers, which is just a bunch more math using these equations, which I streamlined by using Excel. And this isn't a math lesson, so here are the results. The interquartile range, or IQR, was 13. Plug it into this equation and it tells us where the outliers fall. So basically none of these numbers are outliers. After that, I just averaged all the numbers and it gave me a 37% price change from resin to plastic. And then because I wanted to know the margin of error, I chose a confidence interval of 99%, which means I just need to use the z-score of 2.58, which I then plugged into this equation right here, and it gave me the margin of error of plus or minus 6%. So if what I did is correct, then we can assume when a kit goes from resin to plastic, be it a hybrid or full resin kit, that its price decreases anywhere from 31 to 43% since the average was 37%. Again, I'm not a mathematician, so if you know what else needs to be done, do it in the comments down below if you want to. Now for a bit of commentary. Something I noticed for hybrid kits is that the price decrease from resin to plastic depends heavily on how much of the kit is composed of resin. The best example of this is the Stormblade and Stormhammer. From pictures I can find online, it looks like the Stormhammer uses less of the plastic kit than the Stormblade does, which kinda explains the discrepancy in cost. This is even further proven if I include the Space Marine variants of the Baneblade, which is the Fellblade and Glaive, and I also calculated their percentage change and it's 49% because they're both the same price, which is arguably justified though. Because if they were to give us a new plastic Fellblade or Glaive, it would most likely be $210 since it only uses the skeleton of the Baneblade, so it would be an entirely new kit. The Knights Questoris and Armigers are a bit iffy because if the Styrex and Megara were to go to plastic, they would honestly just be $180 like the plastic Questoris Knights, and the Moiraxes would just be 2 for $94 like the plastic Armigers. So honestly, it's a bit harder to use this on the hybrid kits, and maybe some kits that have gone to plastic like the Thanatar, since GW is now packing as much as they can onto one sprue, so that then means that it takes less money to machine injection molds. But that's just my dumb observation about GW's pricing and wanting to rationalize it, and now you too can possibly predict the price of a Forge World kit going to plastic. There are obviously some holes in this, so if you're an actual mathematician and would like to expand upon it, that'd be awesome, because I'm just a guy on the internet. Anyways, if you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, simply hitting the like and subscribe button helps more than you think. And maybe let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on the subject of today's video. If you want to show me some of your cool miniatures, be it Warhammer, Battletech, or any other miniature war game, I do have a Discord server. Or if you want to get some live feedback on your miniatures, you can catch me live right here on YouTube and Twitch. I stream 3 to 4 times a week. But if you really want to help support the channel, becoming a channel member also helps too, since it allows me to make up bullshit excuses to my parents about why I totally need to get a Knight of Tropos, whenever the hell that goes back in stock. Please, for the love of the God Emperor, do not make it plastic before I can buy one. Anyways, I have to go make more terrible financial decisions, so I'll see you on the next video, and remember, being poor is a choice.